Hello, everybody. Welcome along the Extra Point podcast ahead of week 2 of the NFL season. I'm Darren Fletcher in the company of Neil Reynolds, and we still, despite a week, haven't managed to track down Vernon Kay. But I do promise at some point that he will join us for the podcast, because this is supposed to be a trio, but nobody seems to know where Vernon is. But you are here, my friend, fresh from the United States. How on earth was the trip?
It was good. First of all, Vernon's like the Atlanta Falcons pass rush. It's got star power because they got a couple of first-round draft picks. It's talked about a lot, and it never really shows up.
Yeah, and I'm also hoping that he's not cutting sausages or throwing blue footballs at Bucking Bronco. But enough of that.
Talk about my week one. That'd be so for something, definitely.
So,
a lot of fun. Yeah, a lot of fun to see. Obviously, any game when you're there, you know it when you've called the games for the radio and the TV. It just hits different when you're in the stadium. Rodgers looked really good, but I tell you what, was very interesting as well was that Justin Fields offered a bit of hope for the Chicago Bears. No, he didn't. Not for the Bears, did he? That was many years ago.
There's no hope for the Chicago Bears. We'll get to that in a bit. Don't you worry about that.
So for the Jets, I thought it was really good game. You know, if I'm honest, I walked into that stadium thinking there might be times I've got to sell a 16-10 or a 17-9 game here, and that's what you just never know in the NFL. A shootout in week 1 between the Jets and the Steelers.
Okay, I can have a yes/no answer, and I promise I won't raise this again. Am I not allowed to talk about the other coverage in your presence?
No, I think you can allude to it gently. You allude to it as much as you want, and I'll kind of just nod along or laugh or giggle or not say anything. But I don't think we should ignore it. And I think you should. Maybe when there's 3 of us, the 2 of you can talk about it and I'll be quiet. But look, I'm going to play nice.
I'm quite happy to talk about it on my own. Never mind about in the company of anybody else. But I might just give it another week before I break open the bag of discussion. That we might do that next week. I've got some big questions I want to ask you, kind of reflecting on week 1 and looking bigger picture for the season as it moves, and then we can pick out some of the bits and bobs that we're looking forward to in week 2. But just to kind of put a bit more meat on the bones from your experience in New York last week, the overview of Rodgers and the Steelers. I mean, my concern for them going in was DK Metcalf, yes. Who else? A little bit concerned about the running game and what was he going to look like. 4 touchdown passes later and a lot of points on the board. It was a very un-Steelers-like game, wasn't it? Defense all over the place, offense lighting it up. I mean, if it was the anti-Steeler performance, it was week 1. But big picture in their division, in the AFC, early thoughts based on what you saw over 60 minutes?
Yep. So I think very one-sided team, lopsided in terms of no running game. Najee Harris got out of that building in the offseason. Caleb Johnson's injured, so it's just Jaylen Warren at the moment. 53 rushing yards on 20 attempts. Rodgers is going to struggle at times if the pressure gets in the pocket. There's a couple of times where I was like, he used to skip out of those and take off for a 10-yard run. He can't do that, obviously, but the kind of ability to the couple of touchdowns were on little half rollouts. Yeah, I thought generally he looked really good. I thought the way they spread the ball around Jonnu Smith, you had Skoranek had a touchdown. So, I think there was enough positives there, but, I think he's going to need some balance. The other thing I'd say, bigger picture, he's a bit further on from that Achilles injury. He was pretty good at the second half of last season for the Jets, certainly the last 5 or 6 games. So it was a good start. And, mate, he doesn't care about what he tells you afterwards, does he? Beforehand, it was brilliant. It was like classic. It's 1 of 17 games. It doesn't matter. Afterwards, I'm glad to have beaten everyone associated with the New York Jets. They didn't think I could play anymore.
Yeah. On the Jets then, so they've got Aaron Glenn as the head coach, defensive coordinator in Detroit last season. I think he's more of a culture setter than a wonderful defensive mind, because, I mean, the Lions weren't exactly stingy on defense, were they, with quite a few high draft picks on it. Yep. So his defense is always going to give you a chance, but I think he's a really good culture setter, which is what the Jets were looking for. Key position for them, quarterback, obviously. They've been through a load. It's never really worked. my impression of Justin Fields in week one was that he threw the ball a lot better than I've seen him throw the ball before. We know he's not lost any of his mobility. I mean, is there a theory here that they might find a long-term answer at quarterback relatively cheap in Justin Fields? Is this the year that he's finally going to break out after a stop in Chicago and then a stop in Pittsburgh?
I think it's definitely, when you look at the way he used his legs to set up the throws as well sometimes, because for me, Justin Fields was always first read's not there, pat the ball, and I'm off. Yeah. And it wasn't. He was like, there was one where he drew the penalty where he rolled to his left, and I thought, oh, he's off here. And then he kind of eased up, went to throw downfield, and there was a late hit on him. And actually, that was a bit of a culture setter, because the offensive line all came in and started pounding on Jalen Ramsey. And I think Aaron Glenn said at halftime, we've got to be smarter than that. But you could see he was kind of suppressing a smile, like he was happy they were all kind of going to battle for him. So, look, I think Fields, this is the thing with week one, right? We're just trying to work out who's what, and are there panic buttons to be, to be pushed, or is there like celebrations to be had? So it's got to play out. And but certainly that was everything you would have wanted to see from Justin Fields. It was progress.
Yeah. Anything else to tell me about the trip? Nights out, meals out, purchases, anything of interest to the masses apart from Aaron Rodgers, Justin Fields, and what happened on the field?
I've never seen this before in New York. I've seen it in Kansas City. So I went out for a walk in the morning, and I was we're sort of midtown where our hotel was. I walked up to Central Park. It was a bit further than I thought, bit off a bit more than I could chew. Ended up being an hour and 20-minute walk. So to get back. But I did it in the morning because they'd said on the weather on the news in the morning, there's going to be like thunderstorms and tornado watch is going to be in place in New York City. So I get back and I have a bit of lunch. Then my hotel room, the whole side is just windows. There's nothing but windows, and it's a great view. You can see, you can see it getting blacker and blacker, and there's storms coming in. And then all of a sudden, it was like I was in a car wash. It was just hammering, and there's things flying around outside. I swear it went through in about 3 or 4 minutes, and then it was gone, and it started to brighten up. My TV's bleeping at me, and they've got this warning coming up saying, tornado watch, stay away from the windows. I was like, I've never seen that in New York before. I was like, I can't stay away from my windows. Half of my hotel room is window. So that was it, really. That was my
did that coincide with Jason Bell landing at JFK? Because he comes in like a tornado whenever I've been in the US. Are you sure it wasn't connected to that?
It might have been. I also, I think that's about as interesting as it gets for me, because I don't get out much, especially before a game. Listen to this, Fletch. I'm quite proud of this. I put in my expenses. Probably shouldn't say, but I'm going to. I put in my expenses. 4 days in New York, $81.
Oh my word! What are you doing? I need to teach you. I need to take you to one side, take you on a trip, and show you how this is supposed to work.
I was being frugal.
Wow! If you went on a trip with Ali McCoist, you'd do 81 at the airport before you took off.
That'd be 2 glasses of red.
You're not even in the air at that point, and you've done 81 at that stage with Coisty.
There you go, rock and roll.
By the way, Coisty's coming on the podcast with us, so
brilliant.
Not today, but Ali's a big Rams fan.
Good, we need a third person.
Well, he's coming on our trip, isn't he? So he's going to come on and tell everybody how excited he is. The trip, by the way, international break in November. I think it's the 13th we go. Elite Sports Travel if you want to come. I can guarantee Vernon's not here today, but he will be on the trip. Ali McCoy's on the trip, and we're going to watch USC on the Saturday. We're going to watch the Rams Seahawks on the Sunday. And then we're off to Vegas on Monday night for Monday Night Football between the Raiders and the Cowboys. And if you want to come, we'd love to have you with us. We'll look after you, give you a good time. Give Ben and the team a shout at Elite Sports Travel for all of the information. I want to throw a few bits and bobs at you away from the game. I want to start with the Kansas City Chiefs. First game of the season that we saw them overseas against the Chargers. And I thought Mahomes was okay. Lacking weapons, Kelsey was in and out, no running game, defense didn't do a great deal. Not the kind of opening night you want to see from a team that could be the best team, supposedly, in the AFC. I'm going to throw a big one at you. Any concerns about Kansas City moving forward? And are we getting to the stage where we might start to ask whether the dynasty is over? Do you know what? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. Because I watched that game while spending part of my $81 eating a bit of pizza. I I thought that it was just all so much hard work. I think Mahomes ran because he had to, because no one was getting open. I think when you watch someone like Jalen Hurts run, it's because they want to and it's designed. I thought there was not enough weapons. Xavier Worthy going out completely changed that game early on. I give you an example of the lack of firepower. Hollywood Brown, he did have a 49-yard catch in that game. His other catches went for 9 catches for 50 yards. That's just over 5 yards a catch. There was not enough there. I'm really conflicted in terms of completely writing them off because it's Mahomes and Andy Reid. But let's take Sunday's game, for example, at Arrowhead. Jalen Hurts will be surrounded by A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley. Mahomes will have Juju Smith-Schuster, Hollywood Brown, and a combination of Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. They're miles off the pace in terms of roster building with the Philadelphia Eagles head-to-head. I think they're behind the pace against Buffalo and Baltimore, but they've had their number, so that's why it's hard. But I do think this ultimately, I don't think they'll go quietly. Great franchises don't just disappear overnight, but I do think by the end of this season, they won't be in the Super Bowl. I just think there's too many things that need to be papered over.
People who downloaded last week heard me say they're going to be better than they were last year. When they lose a Super Bowl, they come back all guns blazing. That's before I watched the game in Brazil. So let's just strike a line through that, put it down to a bit of inexperience before the first game of the season, and let's revisit. I mean, Mahomes is going to get killed if he runs like that. He's not going to finish the season if he keeps running like he is at the moment, because not only was he running, he was taking big hit after big hit. Now, you can do that if you're Josh Allen. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is built to take the kind of punishment he was taking. It shows you what a competitor he is based on the fact he was prepared to put his body on the line to try and make it happen for his offense. But Andy Reid must be sat there thinking, I've got to sort this out. Otherwise, I'm going to lose the only real chance that we've got to go deep until everybody comes back. There's got to be, I think, a stop switch in Mahomes' mind that they don't need him to get himself beaten up in the first 6 weeks of the season, because as we know, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And you've only got to be in the postseason to get through the postseason. Getting there is the challenge. They won't get there without Patrick Mahomes. And my fear watching the game was, if he keeps playing like that, then he is going to get himself hurt, because he cannot keep taking hits like that.
He sought out contact to try and fire his team up. And you're absolutely spot on. Let's say Rashee Rice comes back in week 7 after the 6-game suspension, and that team is 3-3 or 2-4. They can go on a run. They get Xavier Worthy back from the shoulder injury. They've got all their explosiveness. And like you said, it's a new season once the playoffs begin. You get to week 7 and Mahomes has gone because he's been trying to get them to week 7 with a 5-1 record. That doesn't make sense. But he's a competitor. Andy Reid's, I think, to your point, he's got quite a big job to do with Mahomes this week, because yes, we love it. Yeah, we love it. We want you to be our leader. We want you to give us our emotion, all of our sparks. But look after yourself. That's what he's got to. That's what he's got to say. Because you're right. This is a team that would you think, even with all their issues, they've still got enough talent to be in the conversation in December and January.
Yeah, got to get there first. Won't get there without Mahomes. Got to try and keep it real until they get everybody back. Right, next one. This is based on a 2-game sample size. So this is Detroit at home and the Commanders. Are the Green Bay Packers right now the best team in the National Football League? Because I've not really seen a weakness as yet with them.
I would say yes, because of the quality of the teams they've beaten as well. When you look at, that's 2 playoff teams that came into this year with serious Super Bowl ambitions. And Jordan Love has no turnovers. That was an issue for him last year, was throwing interceptions by his own admission. He was too inconsistent. Enough Josh Jacobs and physicality when they need it. I don't play fantasy football and it's liberating, but if I did, I'd have Tucker Kraft in there at tight end.
Oh, you would now? You would now. You would. He's not available after week 2. You got to go before the season starts. You can't say week 2. Oh, let's add Tucker Kraft. I mean, he's already gone. He's not in my leagues anyway. He's gone a long time ago. Yeah, you can get Tucker Jenkins in my league, but not Tucker Kraft at the minute for the older listener.
So I think that, offensively, there's everything they need. They lost Jaden Reed, but I think that's fine. They've got enough weapons. Here's where I think they're really interesting to me. They held Detroit, the defense just catches the eye time and time again. And it's not just Micah Parsons flashing with the sack of Jared Goff. 46 rushing yards allowed against Detroit, 51 against Washington, and Washington went for 220 in week 1. So that's 97 rushing yards in 2 games.
I thought watching the game on Thursday night, there was never an easy moment for Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
Any stage, even when he took off and run,
Yep.
the gaps had gone. There was no lane. He couldn't get anywhere. He couldn't do anything himself. All the throws he had to make, he was either under duress from the pass rush or the coverage was good. There was only 2 or 3 throws all night where they got a wide open receiver, and that tended to be Zach Ertz. And I'm not downgrading Jaden Daniels or the Commanders in any way, shape, or form, but I thought that Packer defense was very impressive. Parsons at the minute is still on a package.
Yep.
He's not playing as many snaps as he will do, but they're putting him into a variety of places already. He rushed off the edge. He rushed through the middle. I mean, he was coming from all sides. They never really knew where he was. Couldn't account for him. And, of course, it's making the job for people like Rashawn Gary a lot easier because they've got a double Micah Parsons. I mean, they now, I know we've said this in the past when there were Rodgers teams in Green Bay where you said, well, they've got to win the Super Bowl this year. This is their year. And they find a way not to do it. But I've got to say right now, they look very, very impressive. And this stat jumped out at me. I'm not going to bore people with statistics, but this was astonishing. So the Washington Commanders
made a career out of it.
Yeah, I know. The Washington Commanders, it just shows I've not got to be honest on here. The Washington Commanders in 2025 will pay Terry McLaurin $35.4 million. The Green Bay Packers will pay all of their receivers and tight ends $25.4 million. So the entire receiving core is $10 million less than Terry McLaurin.
I mean, that's just because it's a young bunch. And I think the good thing is, I was watching the game last night, and there was a little end around to Matthew Golden, the first round pick. And I was like, oh, they haven't really even got him going yet, and they don't need to. And then Jaden Reed goes out, and I'm like, okay, they've still got Romeo Dobbs, they've got Kraft making plays. Because they've not had up until now over the last few years, they haven't had a true number one. It's not like they're going to be without one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. I think they can cope with it, and we've just listed every element of the game. They better not get in a field goal game in the playoffs because I'm not sure on McManus. But the rest of it, they are complete, and that's a really good start. It's only a start, but yeah, what's not to like?
It is a start, but it's Detroit, it's Washington.
Absolutely.
There's only really Philadelphia who are also in that Super Bowl conversation in their conference, and they've beaten 2 of them and beaten 2 of them pretty straightforwardly already in the first 2 weeks of the season. I know it can change, but right now, Green Bay looking great. Right, let me give you 2 more before we move it on. I'm going to get to Baltimore in a minute, but let's do Chicago. Is Caleb Williams the answer at quarterback in Chicago? Struggled last year under Matt Eberflus, offensive coordinators all over the place. That gets him a free pass. He looked no better week 1 under Ben Johnson. Started off okay. I think he was 10 for 10, but there was nothing really difficult about it. Then the old issues came in, holding on to the ball too long, overthrowing receivers, lacking accuracy, seemed to get in a bit of a funk himself. His attitude never seems great on the bench. Is he the guy long-term for Chicago, or is it a case of Ben Johnson just needs a little bit more time to unlock him and sort him out? Because I think technically you can solve him, but I don't know if you can solve what's between the ears.
That's the key, isn't it? And this one does need time, because I think physically everything's there and so exciting. When he ran to his right and threw the strike to Rome Odunze on the sideline, that's an absolute cannon of a pass in stride. The guy makes a diving catch. I think there's some nice, there's some really good runs as well. He's athletic, but there's also runs where I'd say that just didn't look they look erratic. They look like there's one where he sort of span and put his body on his line and then fell backwards on his back. I feel like he's trying too hard now. And I think the battle for Ben Johnson will be to calm him down, let him go play to play in a kind of controlled manner. I feel like everything's a little bit reckless, but I'm keen to see it play out. It just doesn't look quite right.
For me, the game never slows down for him. You see quarterbacks, and once they get into a rhythm, the throws look easy, the plays look easy. I was watching some of the plays that Jordan Love made against Washington, and they were so well timed that everything was perfect. The route was perfect, the timing of the throw was perfect. Pitch and catch, it was really easy yards. Very rarely see Caleb Williams and the Bears offense get easy yards. I don't see easy completions. I don't see wide open receivers. I don't see little swing passes to running backs that get you 8 or 9 yards. I don't see those chain moving plays, because the minute the ball snapped, he's like a whirling dervish back there. He's speeding everything up. He's charging around and he's spinning here and he's spinning there. There's not that composure just to take 2 or 3 steps back and then just fire it into your open tight end or whatever it is, or a wide receiver on a slant, just to give you some easy yards and some early rhythm. Whether that's the play calling, whether that's him, but I just don't think you can go very far if everything's fast and everything's hard and everything's difficult.
Everything looks frenetic, definitely.
Yeah.
I think he's a reminder that sacks are not just an offensive line stat, they're a quarterback stat as well, and that they can be on the quarterback. And it's going to be interesting moving forward. I've just been doing some of my research and prep for Sunday. I'm going to be covering the Bears and the Lions. There won't be any excuses for Caleb Williams for very long, nor Ben Johnson, because first and second round wide receivers and tight ends they've got DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Luther Burden at wide receiver. Colston Loveland is a first round tight end, and Cole Kmet was a second rounder. They've invested on that offense, which was one of the worst in the NFL last year, if not the worst, I think. But yeah, I think it's all it just all looks a bit too crazy at the moment.
I mean, the other thing is as well, and this would be a positive for Caleb Williams. I remember when Brett Favre became the starter in Green Bay. The knock on Brett Favre was too many interceptions because he's trying to throw every pass like a stick of dynamite. And he was breaking receivers' hands and he was overthrowing people. He developed into one of the greatest quarterbacks that we've seen. And I look at the way that Caleb Williams throws the ball. He's very rarely throwing a touch pass. There's no delicacy to what he's doing. He's trying to rip your hands off every time he throws a ball down the field. And I think he's losing accuracy by doing it. Whether that's just inexperience and the fact he's hot-headed and he maybe thinks he's better than he is. If he could lose that, I get the impression it would make him a lot more efficient as a quarterback.
I guess that's just, and I've never played quarterback, but I'm just guessing it would be very hard to run around like Roadrunner at 100 miles an hour and then escape the pressure and then not throw an absolute cannon of a pass, right? That's where he's got to play with more poise, more touch. But I'm willing to let it play out because I think Ben Johnson is just going to have to find his feet, balancing being the head coach and the play caller. He said he didn't call a great game in terms of the plays. They let the lead slip, obviously, so it was a pretty negative night in the end for the Bears. But I just think there's so much talent.
A lot was made of the fact that what they could have done with the kickoff at the end, which would have got it. But I think the biggest mistake he made was he went for it on 4th down in the first half from chip shot field goal range, didn't get it. Had the scoreboard had 3 more points on it further down the line, it would have been even more difficult for Minnesota and put even more pressure on JJ McCarthy. And I think the biggest lesson he probably would have learned is that put points on the board when you can. Yeah. It's okay in Detroit where you're going to get 45 a week. In Chicago at this stage, that's not going to be the case. So every point is vital for that offense as it settles down. Further down the line, be brave, go for it. That's fine. But right now, if you're going to get to 25, 26, that might be the max for this group until they learn your playbook a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think you take every point you can get at the time, and I think he'll find that kind of challenge that he's been an offensive coordinator for 3 seasons. He's in the weeds. He's in the X's and O's. He doesn't have to make the big strategy decisions. Now he does. He flipped from one to the other. He's going to have to learn that. So, let's see it play out in Chicago because there's a lot of talent on that side.
I'd like us to wax lyrical about Josh Allen in a minute, but I'm going to ask you this. Can a genuine Super Bowl contender blow a lead like Baltimore did against Buffalo and still be considered what they were before that game started?
I think they can, because now that's happened a few times with that franchise. That's happened a few times now. But I think they can, because they were dominating that game. And they, I was watching it, and it needed a turnover to speed things up for Buffalo's kind of comeback. But there were so many parts of that game where Baltimore just got a finish. It was just a fluky game in the end. I think, Josh Allen wouldn't be denied. But look, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers had a good night. Hopkins had a good catch. I do worry about that defense. And I do think that it's interesting, because there's so many teams going for it on fourth down now. And I just don't see why at 4th and 3, I know it's your own 38-yard line, why would you give the ball back to Josh Allen to kick a field goal to win it? Why would you not say, I've got Lamar and Derrick Henry, I'd rather lose it this way if I'm going to lose it? And actually, if you turned it over there, they probably score so quick, you're going to get another chance to get the ball back. I don't get that. I mean, the only thing I could say is probably thinks he was playing with the Ray Lewis defense.
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah. The thing that kind of sticks in my mind is I'm pretty confident that they're going to see each other again down the road.
Agree.
And I think the message that Buffalo comeback sends to Baltimore and resonates in Buffalo's locker room could be significant come playoff time. I think the confidence that's given Buffalo, the confidence that they've got now in Josh Allen to bring them back from anything, in any circumstances, I think could be quite powerful. And you made the point right at the start of your first answer. This is not Baltimore's first rodeo in terms of blowing a game that they should win. Now, I know it doesn't happen on a regular basis, but it has happened before. And every time it happens, the question has to be asked again, why does it happen to this team? Because I don't see Philadelphia blowing leads like that. I don't see Buffalo blowing leads like that.
Right.
I don't see Kansas City blowing leads like that, but I see Baltimore blowing leads like that. And it starts to get in your mind, I think, is that a weakness in the makeup of that group? Because there are a lot of holdovers. Is that really a weakness of the coaching staff there? Because they've all been there through these setbacks. So I look at it a little bit with a bit more concern because I've seen it before. And I think if you're going to win a Super Bowl, that can't be in your makeup, because you're going to get, when you get to playoff time, teams aren't just going to lay down. You're not going to get a lead late in a game and people are going to go, oh, that's okay, then we'll think about next week. Come playoff time, they're going to play for 60 minutes and more if they need to. And if you've got that weakness in you, I think when you play against the very best at the back end of the season, once we get into January, I think you can be found out. That was a real red flag for me at the weekend. Listen, I think they'll go and rip off 6 or 7 games on the spin now, and they'll be sat at the top of the division, and everybody's forgetting all about it. But I think when it really matters, that'll be in the back of 1 or 2 people's mind.
I think that's the bit that it's the mental side of it. It's going to be in the back of their minds as well, and the pressure that's on Lamar. I actually think, I know we're going to get on to week 2 in a second. This is a big weekend for a Baltimore team that's a massive favourite against Cleveland. But think back 12 months. They lost a heartbreaker to Kansas City in week 1. The Isaiah Likely didn't get his foot down at the back of the end zone. They went home to play the Raiders, who were not fancied at all. And they lost to the Raiders as well. So this team messes about sometimes with other teams that they should beat. And this can't be the case this weekend when they play the Browns. So that would answer, at least go some way to sort of starting to get this team on track.
How big a setback are those injuries week 1 for the 49ers? George Kittle for a few weeks, Brock Purdy for a few weeks. I mean, I'm looking at that group now. I think they've got the easiest schedule in the NFL, but they're not exactly gimmies. I mean, all of the division games, they look like pick'em games, don't they? Yeah. Seattle, the Rams, the Cardinals. Yeah. You could kind of expect anything when they play against each other, but that's ripping the heart out of San Francisco's offense week 1. I know they're going to be back, but I wonder what damage is going to be done between now and the return of the quarterback and the tight end.
And no, Brandon Ayuk still out, recovering from injury last year.
Is it insurmountable for them? The fact that it's multiple weeks for both of them? Can you foresee a situation where they can ride it out?
Yeah, I think I can. I think because Christian McCaffrey had 31 touches. Now he's got a bit of a calf injury, but he was a full go last week, 31 touches of the ball. He's going to be their focal point. they're playing the Saints, so they should be fine. Should have enough. But I did. So my 17-year-old daughter Poppy is a Jags fan, and last year she had to live through a few games with Mac Jones at quarterback. So her insight on the 49ers quarterback situation when I said Mac Jones was playing this weekend was to burst out laughing.
Yeah.
Because
all I would say to Poppy and to the rest of the 49er faithful is that she would have said exactly the same thing when Sam Darnold was there.
Yes.
Kyle Shanahan has a habit of making quarterbacks better. And I think
this will be the key.
Yeah, if Mac Jones is ever going to become an NFL starter, he's going to do it under Kyle Shanahan. So that to me is quite an interesting little storyline over the next 2 or 3 weeks, whether Kyle Shanahan can weave his magic on Mac Jones and make him look like a first-round pick, or is he just going to be a bust? So I think that's an interesting one for me. Maybe I've overlooked that a little bit, that the genius of Kyle Shanahan might just make Mac Jones serviceable. And as you say, they've got the Saints. So if they win that, I mean, they're off to a decent start, and then they've got a little bit of house money to play with, haven't they? Damage limitation, but from a solid start.
They're the classic team. They're, to me, the 49ers. Hang on till mid-season. Let's see where they are when they make a sort of second half run. Kittle's back, Ayuk's playing, McCaffrey's still there, Purdy. Is that enough? I don't know.
See, I think you've almost argued against yourself, because you've gone through a series of ifs.
Give me long enough.
Will Christian McCaffrey still be there? Will Brandon Ayuk be back? When's Brock Purdy going to get on the field? When's George Kittle? If all of those answers are yes, they're all going to be healthy and they're going to be back soon, then that's a really strong-looking team in that division. But if they're not, there's not a great deal else apart from Ricky Pearsall to give you any hope. And if it's Mac Jones chucking in the ball, then I wish I'd not picked him in my fantasy team, because that's going to be a concern for me as well moving forward. I mean, the game of the week this week, I don't think it's a great slate of games. There's a lot of games where you think you can kind of pick it. I'd be surprised if we're not all pretty close on the predictions this week. But the Eagles and the Chiefs is the one. And to me, it's Kansas City under the microscope based on what we spoke about. Can they recover? Are they going to start 0-2? I mean, I think it's a fascinating game for them. And it's the last team you want to play, having lost to the Chargers overseas in week one and you've lost players. I think... I find it hard to make a case that KC can win the game, I've got to be honest.
The only way I can see it is if Patrick Mahomes ignores everything we talked about earlier. And Patrick Mahomes just goes off and says, this is my game. I reckon we see him carry the ball, impromptu carries 9-10 times, like running away from pressure. He's never gone 0-2. He's never lost 3 games in a row in his career. Well, he lost the Super Bowl in week 1. So it feels to me like we're going to see the best of Mahomes, but we don't really see the best of Mahomes. I'm going to go arguing against myself again. See what happens when you leave me talking. I go like a tennis match. Go back. We'll see the best of him from his competitive spirit, but we won't see the best of him because he hasn't got anything around him. I just don't see a way, as much as he's going to fight and scrap and give everything that he's got, I don't see a way they can go toe-to-toe with the Eagles. Because even if the Chiefs step up on defense, which they didn't last week, I still think they'll score their points, Philadelphia. So I'm think Kansas City are going to be staring at an 0-2 start.
Let's just on that. Let's just kind of roll it back again to week 1. So the despicable act of spitting at another player on the pitch, Jalen Carter. So he gets ejected. I'm then sat there thinking, okay, how many games do you get for that? And the answer is no more. That's it. You're ejected, and that's it. And I think from an NFL standpoint, that is weak. It's wrong. I think it sets the wrong example. I think it sends the wrong message. And I was really, really disappointed that he's not had the book thrown at him. I think it was a disgrace what he did.
I was shocked, and maybe it's something. No one seems shocked in America about the suspension. So he basically got fined $57,000, which is his 1 game fee, and then the NFL said there's a 1-game ban, but because you did it before the first snap of the first game of the season, you effectively missed that. So that's weird, because when's there a cutoff if he'd have played the first quarter? So they've said he's almost served time in lieu. Now, I remember incidents in football. I remember that Rudi Voller had that, right, in the German team. I can't
Frank
remember
Rijkaard, yes, battered Frank Rijkaard, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what the ban was, but I think I would think that would be 5-6 games. I mean, if that happened in the Premier League now, high profile Liverpool Arsenal game, and Virgil van Dijk spits all over Declan Rice at the coin toss, that's gonna be huge, and no one seems to be that shocked in the NFL. Look, if I'm walking down the street, I'd rather you punch me in the face than spit on me. I think it's just demeaning. I just think I'm really, really shocked by this one.
Yeah, me too. I think it's kind of a punishment without punishment, really. I think, as I say, I think it's weak. I think it sends the wrong message. I think if you see it again, and then the upshot of all that is a 1-game ban and 1-game check, I think you're saying to people, look, you can do that if you want to do it. I think it's wrong. And I think for a league that prides itself on trying to do the right thing, I think that's why it surprised me. I mean, some of the punishments that we've seen for certain offences have been draconian. You know, and they've been very, very firm in certain situations and then completely lenient with this one, which...
What do you think it would be in the Premier League if that happened? Hypothetical.
I think you'd be at least 3.
Yeah.
Because you get a straight red. So I think it'd be at least 3, and then there'd be a clamour to add more on. I think you'd probably be looking at 5.
Yeah.
I think. I don't think it... Is it a great deal different to biting someone? I mean, it kind of falls in the same category to me, that kind of stuff. And you'd certainly be looking at that kind of suspension for that. And I just think it tarnishes Jalen Carter's image. I mean, there was a lot of stuff when he came out of university about would anybody take a chance. He was involved in stuff before he got drafted. A load of teams passed on him. And you're looking at it saying, have you really learned any lessons? It would red flag me for him down the line that you kind of think, well, there's going to be more trouble coming. If that's the way you handle yourself opening night of the season on national television, then there's not really much of a stop switch. So I would be expecting in the next 2 or 3 years more aggravation from Jalen Carter if I was Philadelphia. If I'm Howie Roseman, I'm kind of battening down the hatches.
I don't think Dak Prescott covered himself in glory, but he did exactly what he wanted. He got the guy ejected.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with that, but you can't do it. No. Anything else that catches your eye? Week 2, it's a massive game for Chicago and Detroit. I mean, you don't really want to fall 0-2 in that division, so it's a big one for both of them.
And then I think, although it's only week 2, I think it's a big game for the Miami Dolphins at home against the New England Patriots, because in week 3, they're at Buffalo. So if they lose at home against New England and go and lose in Buffalo, Mike McDaniel might be gone before the end of September. I think it's that bad in Miami at the moment.
Isn't it astonishing how his stock is falling? I remember year 1 when he first got there, he was the next genius. He was the next Sean McVay, the next Kyle Shanahan. Look at what Miami have got. Give them a load of weapons. Got towards the end of the season where you've got to go win a few games and they can't. They regressed and they've continued to regress.
Yeah.
And now you're looking at him as, well, he's going to get fired soon. And then you wonder where the next chance is going to come from. Does he fall back into that offensive coordinator category and have to be patient again? I've not seen too many NFL head coaches' stock fall as rapidly as his, because he was, to all intents and purposes, anointed as the next offensive genius. And now here we are. He's maybe 1 or 2 defeats away from the sack in Miami, which is not great on your resume, really.
No, he forewarned some of this as well when I interviewed him a couple of years ago, because he said, I don't look like your typical NFL head coach. And he said, I don't fit the mold. So if I don't win and if I don't teach these guys to make them better, then I'm in trouble. So I think there is a school of... I was watching Rex Ryan on the US TV coverage on Monday morning. He's very old school. He was very critical of him. But I think Mike McDaniel has opened himself up for criticism. There's no doubt. I believe they are a soft team. Mentally, physically, I believe they're a team that just are too comfortable under their head coach. And I think he's a brilliant play caller. I thought he was a fascinating interview when I first spoke to him. I think he's rambling more and more at the moment when he stands in front of the media, which doesn't help because it's all a perception thing when you're the face of the franchise. But I think that this team has slid so far, and he's allowed it to a little bit. He was talking in the off season about they've got issues with players being late for meetings. Don't let them be. Then you're the coach. I keep going back to, and it's not as sexy and it's not as trendy as Mike McDaniel was going to be. Stephen Ross had Sean Payton on a yacht trying to get him to be the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. That is exactly what the Dolphins need right now.
Yeah. Also, I was a little bit surprised week 1 how easily the Raiders beat the Patriots. Based on the fact that Mike Vrabel had gone in there, Drake May had shown a lot of promise in the second half of the season. You think, well, okay, then get Vrabel in, change the culture a little bit. Your quarterback's going to kick on. And then Pete Carroll goes into there for his first game as the Raiders coach. And his impact was so much greater.
It was.
At the outset than Vrabel's was on New England. And it surprised me a bit how easily the Raiders won the game, because based on what I saw last season, I would have had New England as the better team going into that game, at home as well. I would have made them the favourites. But they never looked like that all the way through. And this was a Raiders team where Ashton Genty didn't do a great deal. So it was kind of on the arm of Geno Smith and some big plays down the field to Bowers and Myers and people like that. Yeah. But it was a really straightforward Raider win on the road, which surprised me.
And I think Geno Smith needs a bit more attention. I'm glad you mentioned him, because he's probably the difference in this game, because he's not going to get anywhere near the off-season attention of a Drake May, but he threw for 360-odd yards in this game. Pete Carroll and Geno Smith together are going to make you competitive. It might not make the Raiders a playoff team, especially in that division, but I think we'll be at the end of this season and say, do you know what, the Raiders are on the right track. And it's actually with a cast-off quarterback nobody else wanted and a 74-year-old head coach.
Yeah, I must say, they were the team, kind of looking back on week 1, the team that impressed me the most based on what my expectation levels were. Mm-hmm. I think the Raiders over-delivered more than anybody else. I think in terms of underachievers, it's difficult to look past Kansas City because I expected more from them. But another team that I disappointed me a bit with Denver, home to Tennessee.
Yep.
Looked a bit clunky.
Yep.
Supposed to be an AFC championship game contender, get there, maybe win the division. A lot of people in America tipped them to win the division. They looked a long way off it. Bo Nix didn't look as good. I think so. Detroit, they maybe disappointed me a fair bit as well.
Detroit, you could put in that mix as well.
Yeah,
because it's the manner in which you lose, or the manner in which you win. So Denver won, but it was really ugly against the Titans team that Tennessee had 133 yards of offense and 131 yards of penalties, and Denver still only just won. Detroit, Detroit struggled and never put up a fight against the Packers. Miami made Daniel Jones look like Daniel Marino. It was like, it was. So this is where week 2 now is. We needed more of a body of work. We start to see those kind of bits rise up and down. We'll get a bit of a better idea. So yeah, bring it on. Bring on week 2.
So what have you got week 2? You've got the Bears and the Lions as the first game.
And then the Eagles and the Chiefs.
Oh, fantastic. You've got a great weekend.
Good weekend.
You're all prepped up and ready to go?
I'm ready. All my notes are done. My notes are done. They're handwritten. Everything.
Good. I love that. So you're all ready for that. I've got a table set up in the front room. I've got this gigantic bratwurst and I've got a really sharp knife. So I'm ready. And then I've got a bucking bronco in the corner of the room. And Lauren's going to be on the bucking bronco. And we're all going to be throwing balls to see if she can win a holiday to Miami.
My phone's ringing. I've got to go.
Right. Well, that's it. He's got to go. I'm all set for the weekend. I'm going to be multi-watching. I've got a variety of things to do. Neil and the team. I've got a bit of Red Zone and Scott Hansen. And then I've got It's a Knockout as well. So I'm looking forward to all of this. Don't forget, if you want to join us on the trip, where you will see Vernon Kay, who's disappeared off the face of the earth. We're going to be jetting off on the 13th of November. We're seeing the Rams against the Seahawks, and we're seeing the Raiders against the Cowboys. Neil's got a trip as well, Elite Sports Travel. Give Ben and the team a shout if you want to join us. Thanks for your company. Thanks for putting up with us. We'll be back next week. This is the Extra Point Podcast. I'm Darren Fletcher. He's Neil Reynolds. Enjoy week 2, everybody.